My sister left her husband for his best friend, and now she wants to stay with me. I'm dealing with some real family drama and could use an outside perspective. My sister, Emily 30, has left her husband, Mark 30, to be with his best friend, Tom 32. Now she's asking if she can stay with me, and I honestly have no idea if I'm being unreasonable by saying no. A bit of background: Emily and Mark have been together since high school. I remember the day they met like it was yesterday. It was at our school's homecoming game. Emily was a sophomore cheerleader, and Mark was the somewhat awkward junior who'd just transferred from another school. He'd accidentally spilled his drink all over her uniform before the game, and instead of getting mad, she'd laughed it off. That was Emily back then, always ready to see the bright side of things, always kind. They were one of those couples everyone thought was perfect, together for over a decade, married for 5 years, and completely solid, or so we thought. Mark is a genuinely good guy. He's the type who'd drop everything to help someone out, has patched up my parents' roof more times than I can count, and has been there for me through my own worst breakups. Just last winter, when my car broke down during a snowstorm, Mark drove 2 hours to come get me, then spent the entire next day fixing my car himself to save me money. He's basically part of our family, and we've all grown to love him like a brother. I remember their wedding day 5 years ago. Emily was radiant, and Mark couldn't stop crying during their vows. My dad, Robert, gave this touching speech about how he wasn't losing a daughter but gaining another son. Mom, Sarah, spent weeks helping Emily plan every detail, from the flower arrangements to the seating chart. That's what makes this whole situation even more painful. We all invested so much in their relationship, believed in it so completely. Well, it turns out that about a year ago, Emily and Tom, Mark's best friend, started connecting in a different way. Tom had been Mark's best friend since college. They met in their engineering program and hit it off immediately. He was Mark's best man at the wedding, for crying out loud. He and his wife Lisa had been part of our extended family circle for years, always there for holiday gatherings and summer barbecues. I think it began as them confiding in each other about their marriage struggles. Emily had been feeling restless in her job as a marketing manager, and apparently, that translated into restlessness in her marriage. Tom, meanwhile, had been having his own issues with Lisa. They'd been trying for a baby for 2 years without success, and the stress was taking its toll. At some point, they convinced themselves that they were each other's soulmates. Emily swears it wasn't physical until recently, but knowing it's been going on emotionally for so long honestly feels worse. Looking back, there were signs we all missed. Emily started pulling away from family gatherings about 8 months ago, always having some excuse about work or being tired. When she did show up, she was constantly on her phone, smiling at texts she wouldn't share. Mark noticed too. He confided in me once that he felt like Emily was becoming a stranger, but he blamed himself for working too much at his engineering firm. He even started planning date nights and weekend getaways to try to reconnect with her. The thought of him trying so hard while she was already checked out of their marriage makes my stomach turn. The kicker: Emily didn't even tell Mark herself. Lisa was the one who walked in on them together at Tom's office after hours. Apparently, Emily had told Mark she was working late, but Lisa had stopped by to surprise Tom with dinner. Instead, she got the surprise of her life. She's the one who told Mark, not Emily. She called him that same night, devastated and angry. Emily claims she didn't want to hurt him, so I guess she thought, what? That he'd just not notice his wife left him? I don't know. It was a disaster. Mark was crushed, blindsided. I was there when he got Lisa's call. He'd been at our parents' house, helping Dad install a new dishwasher. I'll never forget the way his face just crumpled. He tried calling Emily to talk, but she'd already packed her things and left to stay with her friend Rachel, saying she was finally following her heart and that she doesn't owe anyone an apology. Honestly, it all felt cold. The aftermath was chaos. Lisa filed for divorce immediately, but Tom and Emily didn't seem to care about the devastation they'd caused. They moved in together barely 2 weeks after everything came out, renting an apartment across town. Emily posted on social media about living her truth and choosing happiness, as if she hadn't just blown up 2 marriages and a decade of friendships. Mark hasn't been the same. He threw himself into work, barely sleeping, barely eating. Our other sister, Jessica, 26, has been checking on him regularly, bringing him groceries and making sure he's at least taking care of himself basically. Last week, she found him sitting in the dark in his and Emily's old house, surrounded by wedding photos he couldn't bring himself to take down. It broke my heart all over again. Now Emily's asking to stay with me because, according to her, Mom and Dad are being hostile and unsupportive. They're both furious with her, especially my dad, who feels like she's broken up our family and betrayed someone who's been nothing but kind to us. Dad actually ran into Mark at the hardware store last weekend and came home in tears, something I've never seen before. He said Mark looked like he'd aged 10 years in 2 months. But my mom's in that weird spot of still being her mother and saying she needs support, despite what she did. Mom's been stress baking nonstop, something she always does when she's upset. Our kitchen counter is permanently covered in cookies and pies nobody wants to eat. She keeps trying to arrange family dinners to talk things through, but Emily refuses to come if Dad's going to judge her, and Dad refuses to sit at the same table as her until she apologizes to Mark. I told Emily I'm not comfortable letting her stay here. For one thing, my fiancé, David, is close friends with Mark. They play basketball together every Sunday, and David's been one of Mark's main supports through all this. It would feel like a betrayal to let her stay when we know how badly she hurt him. David actually said it would be a slap in the face, and I agree. But it's not just loyalty to Mark, this whole thing has shaken how I see my sister. The situation has caused rifts I never expected. My best friend Sophie, who's known both Emily and Mark since high school, has completely cut ties with Emily. She told me she couldn't stomach watching someone deliberately hurt people she claims to love. Even Emily's college friends have started distancing themselves. Apparently, she's been trying to paint herself as the victim in all this, and they're not buying it. We were close growing up, but the way she's handling this. How easily she's justified tearing someone's life apart, and her complete lack of remorse, it feels like I don't even know her anymore. When I suggested she should give Mark some closure, she lashed out, called me just like everyone else, and accused me of throwing her under the bus. She even dragged up mistakes I made years ago, saying I'm a hypocrite for not being forgiving. She brought up my failed engagement from 5 years ago, when I called things off with my ex 3 months before the wedding. But that was completely different. I hadn't cheated, hadn't lied, hadn't betrayed anyone. I'd simply realized we wanted different things in life and had the courage to end it cleanly before making a huge mistake. The fact that she'd even compare the situations shows how warped her thinking has become. Last week, things got even messier. Tom's parents, who've been friends with Mark's family for decades, publicly sided with Mark and Lisa. They released a family statement on Facebook, of all places, saying they were heartbroken by their son's choices and that they stand with Mark and Lisa during this difficult time. Emily was furious, saying they had no right to air private business, apparently missing the irony that her own social media has been full of cryptic posts about following your heart and letting go of judgment. The whole situation has started affecting my own relationship. David and I have had some tense moments, especially when Emily keeps trying to contact me through him since I've been ignoring her calls. He's frustrated that she's putting him in the middle, and honestly, so am I. We're supposed to be planning our wedding for next spring, but this family drama is casting a shadow over everything. How are we supposed to have a celebration of love when our family is so broken? A part of me does feel guilty. I know what it's like to feel lost and rejected, and there's a small part of me that wonders if maybe she's really in a dark place and I'm abandoning her when she needs family most. Yesterday, Jessica told me Emily called her crying, saying she feels like she's losing everything. But then Jessica also mentioned that in the same conversation, Emily was talking about how she and Tom are planning a vacation to Hawaii, using money from the joint account she still shares with Mark. It's like she can't even see how inappropriate that is. But there's a bigger part of me that thinks I'd be enabling her selfishness if I let her stay. She made this mess, and helping her now feels wrong when I see all the damage she's left behind. Mark had to take a leave of absence from work because he couldn't focus. Lisa had to move back in with her parents at 31 because she couldn't afford their house payment alone. Meanwhile, Emily and Tom are posting couple selfies and talking about their fresh start. So now our family is split. My mom keeps saying, family sticks together, and thinks Emily will regret this someday. She's been sending Emily daily texts, trying to maintain some connection while also gently suggesting therapy. But my dad doesn't even want to talk to her. He thinks she needs to face the consequences of her choices, and he's said he's ashamed of her behavior. Last Sunday, he took down all the family photos that had Emily in them, something that made Mom cry for hours. Jessica is trying to stay neutral, but I can tell it's wearing on her. She's always been the peacemaker in our family, but even she admits she's struggling to understand Emily's actions. She's been spending more time with Mark, helping him pack up Emily's things since Emily refuses to come get them herself. Jessica said she found Emily's wedding dress still hanging in their closet, and Mark just stood there staring at it for what felt like hours. Meanwhile, I feel like whatever I do, I'm betraying someone. If I let her stay, I'm betraying Mark, David, and honestly my own values. I don't want to act like what she did is okay. But if I refuse, I feel like I'm abandoning my sister, and I'm scared I'll regret it if she spirals. The other day, I drove past her in Tom's new apartment building and saw her sitting alone on their balcony, looking lost. For a moment, I almost called her. Then I remembered the look on Mark's face when he found out, and I kept driving. The ripple effects keep spreading. Our extended family is taking sides, and Karen hasn't spoken to Mom since she found out Mom was still texting Emily, and our cousin Rachel, who's letting Emily stay with her, has been uninvited from 3 family events. Even our family business is affected. Emily used to handle the social media marketing for Dad's hardware store, but now he's had to hire someone new, which he sees as just another way she's hurt the family. When I told her she couldn't stay, she got cold and said I'm just like everyone else, judging her without understanding what she's going through. She keeps saying she feels totally alone and that I'm the last person she thought would turn her away. It's hard to hear that, but every time I picture Mark, blindsided and brokenhearted, I feel sick all over again. Last week, David came home from basketball with Mark and just held me for a long time, saying Mark had broken down during their game, asking what he did wrong, why he wasn't enough. How can I open my home to the person who caused that pain? Tom's wife Lisa has started a support group for people dealing with infidelity, and Mark goes sometimes. He says it helps to talk to people who understand, but it's also a constant reminder of what he's lost. Meanwhile, Emily's been posting about toxic relationships and outgrowing people, as if her decade with Mark was some kind of prison she needed to escape from. She even had the audacity to suggest that she and Tom might want to have their wedding reception at the same venue where she married Mark, saying it would be meaningful because that's where they first realized they had feelings for each other, at her wedding to Mark. When Mom told me that, I actually had to leave the room to scream into a pillow. I'm struggling to figure out if I'm doing the right thing. Do I support my sister, even after all this, because she's family? Or am I justified in setting this boundary because of the hurt she's caused and her refusal to own up to it? I genuinely can't tell if I'm being fair or if I'm letting my own anger cloud my judgment. David says I'm doing the right thing, that sometimes love means holding people accountable. Dad says the same thing, but Mom keeps sending me articles about forgiveness and family healing. Yesterday, I found an old photo of Emily and me as kids, dressed up as princesses for Halloween. We were so close then, sharing everything, protecting each other, promising we'd always be best friends. Now I look at that photo and wonder how we got here, how my sister became someone I barely recognize. She's still posting daily on social media about her journey and her truth, while Mark can barely get out of bed some days. The worst part might be that Emily seems to think this will all blow over, that eventually everyone will understand and accept her choices. She's already talking about bringing Tom to Christmas dinner, as if that wouldn't destroy what's left of our family's peace. Mom's trying to figure out how to tell her that's not going to happen without pushing her further away, while Dad's made it clear he'll spend Christmas alone before he'll sit at a table with them. I keep waiting for Emily to show some sign of remorse, some recognition of the pain she's caused, but instead, she seems to be doubling down. She and Tom are talking about starting their own business together, something about relationship coaching and living authentically. The irony would be funny if it weren't so painful. Meanwhile, Mark is selling their dream house because he can't stand living there with all the memories, and Lisa had to change jobs because she couldn't face working in the same building as Tom anymore. This morning, Emily texted me a long message about how she hopes I'll come around and choose love over judgment. She said she misses her big sister and needs my support now more than ever. But I can't help thinking about how Mark must miss his wife, how Lisa must miss her husband, how my parents must miss the daughter they thought they raised. Sometimes love means saying no, even when it breaks your heart. I just wish I felt more certain that I'm doing the right thing.